Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the heart of ancient Indian history, straight into the Dwapar Yuga, to unpack the absolutely epic tale of Shrikrishna's birth in Mathura. And look, this isn't just some old myth. It's a gripping, high-stakes showdown between blinding, tyrannical fear and honestly some of the most profound faith you'll ever see. So let's jump right into the suspense, the psychological warfare, and the incredible midnight miracles that make the story of Janmashtami so enduring. So our source material kicks things off by introducing us to Kansa. He's the cruel dictator of Mathura. But here's the catch. Despite being totally ruthless, he genuinely loved his sister, Devaki. In fact, he was so happy for her that he was personally driving her bridal chariot. But then, out of nowhere, the birds stop chirping, the wind just dies down, and a booming celestial voice, an akashvani, completely shatters the peace. It announces that Devaki's eighth son is destined to destroy Kansa. In a heartbeat, that brotherly love violently morphs into paranoid rage. Kansa literally slams on the brakes, draws his sword, and prepares to strike down his beloved sister right then and there to save his own skin. Now, thinking incredibly fast, Devaki's new husband, Vasudeva, throws himself at Kansa's fate. And he makes this devastating, desperate gamble. He promises that he will personally hand over every single child born to Devaki directly to Kansa. It's a terrifying bargain, but the logic works. Kansa lowers his sword. But man, that reprieve comes at a terrible cost. The joy of a royal wedding is instantly wiped out by the heavy, slamming iron doors of Kansa's darkest dungeon. Devaki and Vasudeva are stripped of absolutely everything, shackled in chains and forced onto a cold, damp stone floor. What happens next is just an agonizing timeline of grief. Vasudeva, keeping his word, hands over their firstborn. He's begging for mercy, pointing out that the prophecy only mentioned the eighth child, right? But Kansa is just completely blinded by paranoia, and he violently smashes the newborn. And this horrific cycle repeats for years. 5 more children are born, and 5 more are brutally murdered. The parents are living in a constant waking nightmare. Then, the 7th pregnancy mysteriously vanishes. We know it was divinely transferred elsewhere, but for the grieving parents locked in the dark, they just believe they've lost yet another baby. Okay, so now we arrive at the 8th pregnancy, and this psychological tension is just off the charts. Kansa's terrified. He's pacing outside the dungeon day and night, utterly consumed by this prophecy, pretty much losing his mind. But inside, it's a completely different kind of intensity. Devaki is traumatized, sure, but she's unbroken. She spends her days with her eyes closed, just fervently praying for protection. After 7 years of absolute, agonizing sorrow, they are waiting, hoping against hope that a miracle might finally happen. Well, that miracle finally arrives on the pitch-black night of Shravan Ashtami. It is the absolute peak of monsoon season. Lightning is flashing everywhere, and torrential rain is just pounding the prison walls. But right as the clock strikes midnight, this eerie, heavy silence falls over the entire dungeon. Every single one of Kansa's heavily armed guards miraculously collapses into this deep, unbreakable sleep. And right there, in the midst of this sudden, profound quiet, Devaki goes into labor. The moment of the prophecy is finally here. But here's the thing, it is not your typical birth. Suddenly, that dark, damp cell is flooded with this brilliant golden light. Standing right there before the awestruck parents is Lord Vishnu himself in his majestic four-armed Chaturbhuj form. It's an unbelievable sight. He's holding a conch shell, a divine disc, a mace, and a lotus flower. He's adorned in these glowing yellow garments, with the radiant Kaustubh gem just shining right on his chest. For Devaki and Vasudeva, this is it. It's the ultimate divine validation of their years of suffering and their unwavering faith. Now, what happens next is so profoundly human, and I think it speaks to a really universal truth. Even when faced with the supreme, awe-inspiring power of the cosmos, Devaki's maternal instinct completely overrides everything else. She literally folds her hands and begs the Lord to hide his divine form, because she knows if Kansa sees a glowing deity, his cruelty will know no bounds. She just wants an ordinary baby that she can hold and protect. And responding to that pure, incredible love, Vishnu smiles, withdraws his forearms, and transforms into a quiet, beautiful human infant. The second that divine form becomes a baby, a rapid-fire sequence of just impossible miracles kicks into gear to help them escape. The heavy metal chains on Vasudeva, they magically fall away. Those massive iron doors click open entirely on their own. The guards are still totally frozen in their magical sleep. So Vasudeva places baby Krishna in a simple bamboo basket and steps out into the raging midnight storm. And get this, as he walks up to the violently flooded Yamuna River, the roaring water is miraculously calmed down and actually part, creating a safe, walkable path right through the middle of the flood. This river crossing gives us one of the most iconic, awe-inspiring images of the entire epic. The storm is still raging, it's pouring heavy sheets of rain, and suddenly, this massive hissing sound echoes out of the darkness. The giant, multi-hooded serpent, Sheshnag, appears, and it spreads its massive hoods directly over that bamboo basket, basically acting as a living, breathing, divine umbrella. As Vasudeva wades through the chest-high water, not a single drop of rain touches the newborn. It's like nature itself is bending backward to protect this child. So after successfully crossing the river, Vasudeva stealthily sneaks into the quiet village of Gokul. He finds the home of his friend Nanda, and surprisingly, the doors are wide open. Inside, Nanda's wife Yashoda is in a deep, exhausted sleep because she just delivered a baby girl. With a really heavy heart, Vasudeva performs the divine exchange. He places Krishna into the cradle, softly picks up the newborn girl, and with one last lingering look at his son, makes the long, silent trek all the way back to his chains before dawn breaks. The very moment those prison doors lock shut again, the baby girl cries out. Boom, the guards snap awake, and Kansa comes rushing in, sword already drawn. This right here is the ultimate clash of mental states. Kansa is driven entirely by this blinding paranoia. Even when he sees that the baby is a girl, clearly not the prophesied son, he refuses to spare her. Meanwhile, you have a broken Devaki throwing herself at his feet, desperately begging for the girl's life. She's pleading, pointing out there's no way this girl could be his killer. But Kansa, his heart is just pure stone at this point. Completely ignoring his sister's heartbreaking pleas, Kansa aggressively snatches the baby girl by her legs to smash her. But right as he swings his arms back, she slips right out of his grasp. She flies high up into the dungeon ceiling and instantly transforms into the terrifying 8-armed goddess Durga, wielding these glowing cosmic weapons in every single hand. She looks down at the tyrant and delivers a booming warning. Foolish Kansa, the one destined to destroy you is already born and safe elsewhere. And with that, she just vanishes in a flash of light. The aftermath of this moment is huge. For the very first time, this proud, cruel tyrant actually drops his sword. He is trembling, sweating, in pure, unadulterated terror. He finally knows his doom is out there, it's growing, and it is completely out of his reach. But for Devaki and Vasudeva, sitting there in the dampness of their cell, a completely different realization dawns on them. After 7 years of unimaginable loss, Devaki looks up with tears of pure joy. Her son is alive. The absolute darkest night of their lives has finally given way to unbreakable hope. You know, the story of Janmashtami isn't just ancient history. It's a timeless framework for resilience. It shows us exactly how blinding fear and an obsession with control will eventually consume a tyrant, while unwavering patience and faith allow light to pierce even the darkest of dungeons. So I want to leave you with this thought to reflect on. How does this ancient victory of faith over fear continue to guide us through our own darkest times today? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.